for next week unless your subcommittee decides to meet. Take the week off, go party. And I'm planning an exec for the remaining bills on March 7th, which is the Monday before Election Day, and the Monday before the deadline, which is Thursday the 10th. So all the bills that are in subcommittee need to be out and ready to go that day. So get your work done. That's it. And I don't know how many Senate bills or second committee bills we'll be getting until the end of the week. Yeah, Monday is, the State House is closed for the holiday. That's the President's Day. No, next week is off.
No, I mean committee meetings, I meant full session. No. There was some kind of email that kind of replied to us.
Not that I know of. Not unless we don't get very far on these 2 days and they decide at the spur of the moment to have one, but I haven't heard anything. Certainly nothing official.
Well, that's a relief.
No, but I would lay money. It's going to be the week after the 10th.
So we'll be off March.
We have March, yeah. Being 1 o'clock, welcome to ED&A, and I'm opening the public hearing on House Bill 1135 and call the sponsor, Representative Fellows.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Representative Sally Fellows from Holderness, and I'm here to introduce HB 1135, requiring an audit of education freedom accounts. For 30 years, I worked at the Department of Education. I was involved with audits of both federal and state funding programs, and this included an LBA performance audit of adequacy aid of school districts right after the state increased funding and changed the allocation formula in response to the Claremont lawsuit. So why did I file this bill? It warrants LBA, the program warrants LBA review because it is unlike any previous state school aid program. And I've just identified five ways that it's different, and not that those are the only way, but just to give you a general overview for those that are not really familiar with the program. The State Department of Education is not managing this program. It is contracted out to a private entity. The contractor keeps 10% of each student's allocation, and parents can utilize 90%. The more students that sign up, the more money the contractor will make. School districts expend 100% of their adequacy aid in the year they receive it. With EFAs, Education Freedom Accounts, the full allocation goes to the contractor in payments, 4 payments throughout the year, but parents need not expend their share each year. They can delay spending any of their allocation for years and let it accumulate in their account. So it's important to understand how the cash will be managed by the contractor. Will the contractor keep it in banks, stock, Bitcoin? The payouts for this program range between approximately $4,000 and $8,000 per student each year. This is a significant amount of money and can be an enticement for fraudulent claims. Does NHDOE or the contractor have sufficient safeguards in place to prevent fraud? I think it will be very important and also very difficult to verify that all recipients are and continue to be New Hampshire residents. While some of the EFA students will be attending private schools, many will not. Parents are required to provide annual test results of a test of their choosing. They can select from a list that has several options, or a statement that a teacher has reviewed a student portfolio. But there are no benchmarks or minimum performance requirements for continued funding. So how will the contractor verify that students are actually being educated? Maybe the most important reason for this audit is that we have no idea how much this program will cost going forward. We don't even have a good idea of who is participating in the program. NHDOE, the State Department of Education, estimated before this legislation was passed that 50 students would participate, less than 50 students would participate in the first year. But as of last November, enrollment was over 1,600, and I believe that there have been several hundred more students that have enrolled since then. To understand future costs, we need to understand who is participating. That's why I included in the bill an analysis of the demographic data of the students that are participating in the program. So we need this performance audit to ensure that state funds are being appropriately managed, because we're talking about $8 million already for this current year, and it could well be a lot more in the future. So I'll answer any questions you have. I'm Chris Shea, who is the Deputy LBA, the Deputy Legislative Budget Assistant, is also here, and he can answer questions for you about the particulars of how a performance audit functions. But if you have any questions for me, I'm happy to try to answer them.
Thank you. Representative Lakis has a question.
Thank you. As I recall from the original bill, there was created as part of it a legislative oversight committee, which is supposed to monitor what's going on with the program. Is that, how would that interact with this? Plus, I think there may have been an auditing requirement in the original bill as well, although I don't know the details. Are you familiar with that?
So the original bill did not have any requirement for an LBA audit. I don't think ever does a bill,
Yeah, I didn't say LBA, so.
Well, this is an LBA audit, so it can cover the things that are addressed in this bill and potentially other things. The bill does specify that the report goes to, I think it says finance, it goes to that oversight committee that you're talking about,
Okay.
Department of Education, but audits are also, after they're reviewed, well, I'll let
Okay, thank you.
Chris Shea tell you what happens with the audits.
I will mention that ED&A always gets performance audits, and it is part of our duty to look at them and see if they need further action by the legislature. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. We haven't done very many in the last few years, COVID being one reason, but we are also in the people that read and review, if not approve, performance audits. Representative Broda had a question? No? Okay. Representative Sajak?
Hi, Representative Fellows. I'm interested in your point 4 in your handout. And you say that many will attend private schools. Many will not. Where are those people? Are they homeschools? Is that what that means?
So that's one of the questions. So if you turn your page over, you'll see this report. So this is the first page of a report that was produced in November about the program. There are a couple more pages that I didn't bring. The pages that I did not include tells you exactly what town the students live in, but this is a summary. And if you look at the block that's right here, this tells you that the Department of Education knows where 43% of those students came from. And from came from, I mean, did they come from public schools, or did they were they ever in public schools? That's what it tells you. So it tells us that 57% of the students that signed up at the beginning of the 1600, that 70% of them have never been enrolled in public schools in New Hampshire. So where are they? They could be homeschool students. They could be private school students. They could be, a few of them can be kindergartners, but not very many, because there's a block down here that tells you how many students from each grade. So that's one of the issues. Did people, just think of what could be happening? Did people move from out of state into New Hampshire so they could utilize this program? Were there people who, in terms of potential fraud, there are plenty of people who own second homes in New Hampshire. Did they change their residency to say, we'll call this our regular home so we can get, $4,000, $6,000, $8,000 a year to send our kid to a private school who's maybe they're already going to that private school? So that's why. We don't really know.
Thank you. You've got a follow-up?
Yeah, we're getting dangerously close to the weeds, so I'll stop here. Thank you.
Other questions for Representative Fellows? Okay, not seeing any. Thank you.
There was,
Big card.
You'll need a pink card, Representative Fellows. I'm sure it'll come to you at some point. Usually better. Are there people who would like to hear from the LBA for a summary of performance audits? Yes, okay. Mr. Shea, we'd be delighted to hear from you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. For the record, my name is Chris Shea. I'm the Deputy Legislative Budget Assistant. I've worked for the LBA since 1996. The first 10 years of working with the LBA, I was working in performance audits. Since then, I've come over to the budget side and have worked on the budget and financial issues as it relates to legislation and other issues within the branch. So today I was asked to come and just speak with you at a high level as to what a performance audit is and how it kind of comes to be. Performance audits are, the topic matter is controlled is provided by the Legislative Performance Audit Oversight Committee. That's a 10-person committee. It's 5 House members and 5 senators. They will come up with a topic, discuss it with our audit group. Our audit group will take that topic and they will scope it. And scope it just basically means they're going to take a look at what information might be out there related to the area that the committee would like to have audited. And they come back with a report to the Legislative Performance Audit Committee to indicate what they believe an audit could accomplish for that particular topic area. If the committee agrees with what the scope statement is or what the question is, Then they move forward. If they need to refine it, then our auditors would work with them and refine the question to make sure they can get at a good audit, essentially. Once the Legislative Performance Audit Site Committee agrees on the question, they need to present it to the Fiscal Committee for approval. So Fiscal Committee will approve the topic, and once it's approved, our auditors will go out and conduct the audit. Audits can take several months to half a year, depending on the size and scope of a performance audit. Sometimes they might be, review a division for efficiency and effectiveness, which is typically the words that we associate with a performance audit. We can also do compliance as well. Our auditors follow government auditing standards. You may have heard, if you're familiar with auditing at all, you may have heard the term Yellow Book, which is the book put out that they follow. Once the auditors finish their report, they bring it back to the Fiscal Committee, who will accept the report, and it will be distributed. And as the chair indicated, many times performance audit reports will come back before the ED&A Committee in the House with a presentation from our audit staff to just let you know what they had done and what their conclusions were as a result of the audit. So that's a kind of a high-level indication of what occurs with the audit. There's recommendations. It's very involved with the agencies. There's a lot of interviews. There may be surveys. There will be data reviews. So it's collaborative with the agency, but we do control the audit. And just if I can take a step back, Representative Lekas had a question about how our auditors might interact or associate with the advisory commission that's in the bill, the original bill that set up the EFAs. They would have interviews and probably consult with them to see what that commission has done, and are they meeting what the function or charge was for that group. At this point, this is a fairly new program. Our auditors would probably look at more of a compliance aspect at this point. Did the program get implemented as the law had indicated? And probably less on efficiency and effectiveness, just because there wouldn't be a lot of data related to that at this time. So happy to try to field any questions that people might have.
Representative Schuett, and then Sitek.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, Mr. Shea. Thank you for coming to ED&A. Hopefully we'll get to see you again.
You're welcome.
You kind of quickly glanced over the topic that the commission or committee that works with you comes up with a topic. How does that work? How do they get topics?
The Legislative Performance Audit and Oversight Committee may come in, the members may come in with their own ideas. You, as members of the House and Senate, could also come and present an idea to the committee. Our auditors may come forward with suggestions if directed by the chair of that committee. There's a variety of ways that they can come forward, and what the committee would do is debate the topics and rank as to what they feel are the most important ideas that they'd want to have audited. Typically, they give our audit shop 2, 3, 4 topics to kind of have in the queue, and then when we come back and meet with them, they might adjust the order of those audits, that the priority might change, or maybe something new has come up in discussions through committee's work, or through the press, that maybe there's a topic matter like we really need to look at this agency because there's a lot of things going on. So there's some fluidity to it, but our auditors will start an audit and work it through to the end unless directed to stop it. And that doesn't happen very often. That's more of a
Representative Sitek.
Thank you, Mr. Shea. I don't know why I want to say Carlin for some reason. Mr. Shea, have you looked at the Representative Fellows list of her 5 areas of interest or?
I hadn't before this moment, no. She handed it to me, I didn't look at it, I was listening to when she read it.
Well, if you had, my question would have been, are they would they be addressed by an LBA audit?
If I had, I would have answered they may or may not be, depending on if the information is available.
Thanks.
So at this point, as I stated, that our auditors would scope the topic matter. In the bill itself, there's 8 points that are being asked to be addressed. We may not be able to address all of those in an audit at this point because there just may not be information. I think what Representative Fellows has indicated in her 5 points are some potential risk areas. Our auditors might come back and indicate there may be a need for more controls or discussion for controls in certain areas, but I'm not sure at this point they'd have a lot of data to say that it's occurring or not occurring.
Thank you. Representative Lekis.
Thank you. This is kind of a process question. I don't know if you'd be better or the chair would be better to answer it. And you mentioned that you get the audits that you do from the audit committee and then finance reviews them. So I guess the question is, if we were to pass this bill, what would it really do? Is
So
it
it's
just a hint to the audit committee or?
so if you pass this bill, it would be in legislation that we would do this audit.
Okay.
So that at this point, there's not a time associated with it, so I would suggest that our auditors would complete audits that are in the queue at the moment and put this, into the list of audits to complete. But it wouldn't be up for discussion necessarily because the full body has passed it. So it removes the legislative performance audit oversight's ability to set the topics, though it does ask the audit group to come back and present the scope to them so that they can at least review whatever direction we might be headed with an audit.
Okay, thank you.
To make sure that we cover the points that are maybe contained in the bill.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Representative Goley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Now that you said that, I just was looking at the bottom. The effective date shall take effect July 1st, 2022. So anything that's in the queue as of that date forward, you would put it in from there out?
Yes, so this bill would take effect then. It doesn't say that the audit needs to happen at that point. So I would suggest, and having not talked to the Director of Audits about this, but I would suggest that they would probably add it to the queue that the Performance Audit Oversight has already given them a couple of topics to work on. They would add this to it. The other thing is they probably wouldn't want to engage in this before at least a full year has gone by. So it probably wouldn't be before the fall before they would even consider the topic to give it a full year for the program.
That's where I was going with that, so it'd be another full year in the...
So you'd have since last fall through this upcoming fall potentially to look at. So one year, 12 months. We typically like to look at it in fiscal years, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. We would give a time frame for what we're looking at.
Thank you.
Representative Allegro.
Thank you. So that was a good description of procedure, but I'm still not clear on what a performance audit is. Is it just a financial and procedural audit, or is it actually auditing the performance that the institution is intended to undertake?
It would be more of the latter. So the performance audit typically looks at efficiency and effectiveness of a program or a process. We would look to make sure that statutes, best practices, things like that are being followed and have been implemented. We would make suggestions on how to maybe make improvements around that. We would include maybe budgetary numbers, but they wouldn't be audited financials. And we have a finance side that does the financials for state agencies.
Follow up. So there are performance audits currently being performed for the public school system. Is that the case? And how are they measuring up? Are they meeting performance standards?
So I'm sorry, repeat that first part.
I assume there are performance audits taking place with public schools, and if so, are they measuring up to performance standards? Just some background information for me.
Yeah, so we audit state agencies, so we wouldn't necessarily go into the public schools. If they are having audits, typically they're financial audits. They may have other types of reviews, but we're typically auditing state agencies and the implementation of programs that they're charged with. We have the ability to audit entities that receive state funds, but we're limited in the number of those that we can do in a 5-year period, and it's 5. So we don't typically go outside of the state agencies because we have more than enough work with the audits group that we have trying to get those done.
So this bill, I'm sorry, one more follow-up. So this bill would actually require an additional or higher standard than what the public schools are undergoing. Is that the case if they're not undergoing performance standards like this?
I can't speak to public schools and what they might be undergoing. It's not an area that I'm well educated in, I guess, or have a good handle on. What I would say is that what we would be doing is going into the Department of Education and determining how they've implemented this program and determining whether it was done as the law directed, where there's some things that maybe didn't happen or could be happening that would make it better, and we would comment on that. The agency would have an opportunity to provide a response to that, and then the report would be issued to the fiscal committee and then disseminated to the members.
Oh, thank you.
If anyone is not familiar with performance audits, there's a nice stack of them on my desk in outside room 306. You're more than welcome to rummage through and pick some out. There's also financial audits there too, which are totally different.
And everything can be found on our website as well. So if you're interested in an audit or see if an agency's had any financial and/or performance audit conducted, it would find it on our website.
Representative O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I thank Representative Allegro because it got me thinking. I mean, the big difference here, from what I understand, this is going to make sure on a voucher type of program where the money is going to go to the individual student. Whereas, let's say in the example of a municipality, that is figured by a municipal budget, superseded by their particular governing board of that particular community watching, so there's a great difference. In other words, there's nobody watching the hen house, and this is probably what's the nexus of this particular, asking you to look at this particular audit, correct?
This would just be another look at the hen house. I think that in the bill itself, there was an advisory commission set up to review, issue a report once a year in review of the program, but I think what Representative Fellows has indicated in her 5 points is that there may be some potential for things to happen if we don't keep an eye on it in terms of fraud or some other issues with the money, but we can't say that at this time and without having conducted an audit. But again, an audit at this point would be limited to, a period of a year or less, and we probably would be limited to really looking at compliance. Was the program set up the way that the legislature intended? Did the Department of Education do the pieces that they were required to do? And is there elements of it that are related to the scholarship organization that's running the program, or have they done what they should do as it relates to the law? But it may not necessarily be an audit of the detail behind that at this point, just because of timing. But again, that would be up to our auditors to assess when they get into it.
I would say this is intended to be more an audit of the scholarship organization than of anything else. Would that be a correct assumption of how it operates and what it produces? I mean, you're the only one who could speak as to intent.
Yeah, so I think the part that's so different about this program compared to other education funding strategies that we've had is that it's being done by a contractor. So you don't have the same kind of, when I was at the Department of Education, multiple people could see what everyone else was doing, and we had a pretty good sense of like what kind of controls that we had. But this is different. And so we want to make sure the LBA doesn't look for fraud. What they're looking for is procedures that will prevent that from happening. And so that's
Yes,
what they're
thank
going to
you.
check.
I think that's the answer to my question. All right. Are there other questions for Mr. Shea? I don't see any. Thank you for coming to talk to us.
Well, you're welcome, and if anybody, thinks of anything after this meeting and would like to contact me at my office, feel free to do so.
Okay. Is there any other member of the public who would like to testify? All right, not seeing any, I will close the public hearing on House Bill 1135. Okay. And we have 20 minutes before our next hearing. And if we want to go into executive session, is that agreeable? Okay. Representative Goalie, I think you had a comment on, a motion on House Bill 1287, Sleep Awareness Month.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will move inexpedient to legislate.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Representative Goldie moves inexpedient to legislate, and Representative Grotus seconds it. Would you care to speak to your motion?
Yes, this committee's taken a stance as to naming months, days, weeks into statute. I don't think a purpose is served by putting it in one time and then having it in there perpetually without having an organization coming forward and fighting for their cause on an annual basis. And I think it's more effective having those groups go to the governor for a proclamation on a yearly basis for what they truly feel is worthy of being observed. So for that reason, I move inexpedient to legislate.
Thank you. Representative Baroda?
Representative Goley succinctly and thoroughly explained the position.
Excellent. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on the motion? Okay, I don't see anybody. So the motion is inexpedient to legislate on House Bill 1287, and the clerk can call the roll.
Yes, thank you. The clerk votes yes. Representative Yakubovich.
Yes.
Representative Lekis.
Yes.
Representative Allegro.
Yes.
Representative Bailey.
Yes.
Representative Lanzara.
Yes.
Representative Goley.
Yes.
Representative Schuett.
Yes.
Representative Judy.
Oui, monsieur.
Representative Marsh.
Yes.
Representative Fellows.
Yes.
Representative Fontenot.
Yes.
Representative Grote.
Yes.
Representative O'Brien.
Yes.
And the chair.
Yes.
$15-0.
15 to 0. All right, the motion passes 15 to 0. Is there any objection to consent? Seeing none, we'll put it on consent. Does anyone else have a motion on any other bill? Yes, Representative Schuett.
I have an amendment to House Bill 1330, if you think we have time
No,
to look at that. All right.
no, 1330 is going to be more contentious. We don't have a full house. I only want to do bills that are going to go on consent.
All right, let me, I had another, I just have to
However, you could
remember
pass
which
your
number.
amendment around for future use. I'm
I
sure
will
we'll be
do
getting
that.
to it.
How about House Bill 1446, the Governing Board of Recreational Therapists and Respiratory Care Practitioners?
Okay, I'll second that.
And
That's
I
ought
will-
to pass?
I'll move ought to pass, yes.
Okay. This is House Bill 1446, the Governing Board of Recreational Therapists and
Respiratory
Respiratory
therapists.
Therapists. Yes, it's,
This again was, I'm hoping you recognize me to speak to my motion.
please speak to your motion.
This again was making these two boards advisory only. And I did go through what the executive director of OPLC had originally drafted and included my favorite phrase, in consultation with the advisory board, at all aspects that would involve expertise from the board members, and that leaves her to just take care of the administrative duties. I think if you look through the bill, you will see that phrase added where I felt it was necessary.
Madam Chair, was there a second?
Yes, I seconded.
Okay, thank you.
This was a bill that actually came out of two separate bills that we started into the process and then discovered they were in the same statute, so we saved the committee the trouble and combined them before it got to us. It is, one of my favorite terms, housekeeping. It does make it an advisory board, but these two boards are relatively small and don't have issues with this. So I think it is acceptable to them and initiated by the OPLC. Representative O'Brien, you have a question?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Would the chair be so kind to explain to me, maybe I missed it, but when we heard testimony from Director Courtney, the question was brought up to her that this may be a need of a transition amendment into this. Do I have that correct?
I don't recall it specifically, but Representative Schuett, I think, has a better answer than I would.
Thank you. That was a different bill. We did work on several different boards. I did talk to the executive director about this bill, and she felt that these two were pretty simple and therefore could go forward with the, I believe it's 60-day transition period.
The assumption would
boards do
be-
exist now.
The assumption would be that the director would appoint to the advisory board the people who are on the current regulatory board, and that would simplify the transition. You also don't have to worry about licenses being invalid because it's the same organization.
Yeah. Thank you.
Representative Sytek.
Actually, that would apply to the other bills too, in that the executive director can make those appointments. But a couple.
The difference was with the assessors board because that moved from DRA to OPLC. But go on, Representative Sytek.
Okay, first, if a board has, I had mentioned this, I called it voting with their feet. If a board can't, these boards that can't get quorums, as far as I'm concerned, they shouldn't even be licensed at all. Leave that, my petulance aside for a moment, and let's try to do it right if we're going to do this. And we were talking with an unnamed representative over there that I think we have not looked at this carefully enough, the whole situation. I don't like the word advisory. I mean, who has the last call? I think the answer to this quorum issue should have been handled this way, and the horse has sort of left the barn. I think that it should be, we should allow for alternates, we should allow for virtual meetings, and I don't like it being advisory. I think if it's to be done right, it shouldn't be in consultation. The board should have the last word. And so I'll go along with this, but I wish I had thought of this when it first surfaced, because I think that would be the better way to handle it. And I don't know how others may feel.
I'd be happy to simply repeal the requirement to license these people, but I don't think that would go very far. Representative Goley?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just want to let Representative Sytek know that one of those solutions is headed our way, I believe, and that is to allow them to meet virtually. So we will have that option to give them, hopefully, sometime in the future.
Yes, and as I recall, it wasn't so much that the board wasn't meeting, it's just that they kept getting swamped by administrative tasks, which, if they have the full authority to do all that, then they've also got the responsibility, and they had trouble meeting those. Representative Sytek and then Allegro.
That's good to hear. I'm glad, but there's still holes, and I just don't like the word advisory.
Representative Allegro?
Yeah, Representative Sytek actually beat me to the punch. I just wanted to express that he's not the only one with those sentiments, so thank you.
Is there any other comments, Representative Schuett?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will just point out that the only practitioner of these two practices, I guess I'll say, who was present, did speak in favor of this idea, so.
That's good to know. Any other comments, questions? All right. Seeing none, the motion is ought to pass on House Bill 1446, and the clerk can call the roll.
The clerk votes yes. Representative Yakubovich,
Yes.
Representative Lekis,
Yes.
Representative Allegro,
Yes.
Representative Bailey,
Yes.
Representative Lanzara,
Yes.
Representative Goley,
Yes.
Representative Schuett,
Yes,
Representative Judy,
Oui, monsieur.
Representative Marsh,
Yes.
Representative Fellows,
Yes.
Representative Fontno,
Yes.
Representative Grote,
Yes.
Representative O'Brien,
Yes.
the chair.
Yes.
I guess we have 15-0 again.
All right, the motion passes 15-0. Is there any objection to consent? Seeing none, I will, which is, we already killed that.
Yeah.
That was so obvious that we killed it immediately.
I have a motion, Madam Chair.
Yes, Representative Grote, I hope
It's
it's,
ITL on House Bill 1443, which is the declaring the first Monday of March as COVID-19 Victims and Survival Day.
Is there a
Survival
second?
Memorial Day.
okay, Representative Lekis seconds.
What number was that, Bill?
1443. Do you care to speak to your motion?
Yes. I think this bill falls in line with the other bills that we've had commemorating different events. And this is an event that I think is worthy of recognition, but it could be done in a different way, more productive way. Thank you.
Okay, Representative Lekis?
No further comments. She covered it.
Does anyone wish to speak about House Bill 1443, COVID Remembrance Day? The motion is ITL. Okay. Seeing no other comments, the motion is inexpedient to legislate on House Bill 1443, and the clerk can call the roll.
The clerk votes yes. Representative Yakubovich,
Yes.
Representative Lekis,
Yes.
Representative Allegro,
Yes.
Representative Bailey,
Yes.
Representative Lanzara,
Yes.
Representative Goley,
Yes.
Representative Schuett,
yes,
Representative Judy,
Oui, monsieur.
Representative Marsh,
No.
Representative Fellows,
Yes.
Representative Fontno,
Yes.
Representative Grote,
Yes.
Representative O'Brien,
Yes.
the chair.
Yes.
14-1.
Do you object to consent? No. Okay. If there's no other objection, we'll put this on consent. The motion passes 14-1. All right. Okay. I think that may be all we can do today, but, what? Yes,
No,
Representative Sager?
I don't have a motion, but I'd like to address Representative Fellows, and I think I'm very much in favor of the audit. But it sounds like they want to do it on a fiscal year basis. They'd like to have a year behind them. So your bill, I think, I'm in favor of the bill, of the idea, but it may be premature.
So by the time they get to it, like around October, it would be a whole fiscal year, and it would be a whole year of the program.
Okay, we're out of executive session. We'll got a couple of minutes before the next hearing. It having reached 1:45, I'm opening the hearing on House Bill 1510, and I call Representative Infantine.
I always tell everyone the word of the last 2 years should be "you're on mute." I represent Manchester Ward 6, and I'm here to introduce House Bill 1510. The prime sponsor, Representative Adigent, was unable to make it here today, so I agreed. When Representative Adigent contacted me, in September and asked me if I would agree to sponsor the bill, this is normally something I wouldn't really be involved with. But when he explained to me some of the time delays that occur in the state process, that's when I agreed to come on board. We do have issues with how the state hires folks. I know that specifically because in the last 2 months since I agreed to co-sponsor this bill, the lead electrician, head inspector, has left the electricians board and gone to the DRA. An employee of 25 years from the insurance department has now left and gone to Fish and Game. So it seems like we have a process which allows our good employees within the state to move into other positions, but we seem to have a hard time hiring individuals. And the circumstance seems to be, once you apply, other people who are really looking, if you all know, if you're looking for a job, you look for multiple jobs. You're going to look to see what is out there, what kind of offers you get. And if you're really looking for a job because you've made a mental decision to leave the job you're in, and you find a job possibly with a state that you think appeals to you, but it takes 3 or 4 months to get hired, more often than not, the state goes through that process for, and I'm told, I don't work within the state, so I don't know, so this is anecdotal, that by the time they make a decision, 90, 120 days later, the candidates are gone. They've gone somewhere else. So are we doing ourselves a favor by taking so long? Now, Madam Chairwoman, I was in the same meeting with you where we were told this is not the kind of the year to have a lot of study committees, and I get that. So I respect the position we're in with the pandemic and people not wanting to meet and not being able to get senators to agree to study committees. And we've all been here long enough to know that certain study committees have an outward agenda. We know the person submitting it sometimes wants to know, already knows what they want out of it, so it can be used for future possible legislations. This is about as innocuous as possible. It's about as clean as I can see. There's no agenda. No one's looking for anything. But maybe we can do a better job hiring folks by shortening the process. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you, Representative. Are there questions from the committee? Representative Lekes.
Thank you. Do you know if the long time involved in the hiring process is related to statute that we need to change, or is it something the departments could just fix on their own?
I'm sorry. With all due respect, I don't know the answer to that question.
Thank you.
Maybe someone behind me will have a better ability to answer that.
Representative Groda.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Do you know how many openings we have in our state agencies at this time?
I figured this question was going to come up, and I would be careful how I answer it. There are a significant amount of job openings. Some feel that's okay because we had too many openings and our budget may be a little too heavy, so it's okay to have some of those openings. But I can tell you alone, I'm aware of issues with getting permits through the DES for new residential subdivisions and apartment buildings because they just don't have the staff. I know the Department of Transportation is down a number of engineers, and they're not to be able to get as much work out as they have in the past, and let alone, we all know the story about plow truck drivers in the state of New Hampshire. So I don't have the exact number, but just information from individual departments where they're just down at least 1 or 2 people.
So the lack of these, our inability to fill these positions having an effect on the performance of the agencies.
That is my understanding. And again, this is just a study committee. There's no indictment of any system or procedure that we're utilizing, but to review it and to see if we can make it better.
Thank you.
Other questions? All right, thank you very much, Representative Stein. I call Representative Kaplan.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good afternoon, members of the ED&A Committee. For the record, my name is Representative Tony Kaplan, and I represent Merrimack 6, that's the towns of Henniker and Bradford. And I'm here to speak on behalf of House Bill 1510, a bill that would establish a study committee to help us fill various openings at state agencies in New Hampshire. Typically, a study committee will include consideration of the complexity of the application process for job openings at state agencies, the hiring and onboarding process, and the the turnaround time from the initial application to the start date, and see if these various aspects of the hiring process impact the state's ability to fill vacant job positions. In a job market as competitive as the one we're in today, the hiring process can be the difference between filling a position and losing qualified applicants. Several mid-level managers at various state agencies communicated to the prime sponsor representative adjutant that the archaic nature of the application process and onboarding process made it difficult to get qualified people in the door. As one person put it, between how long it takes to apply and how long it takes to onboard someone, by the time we call them for a start date, they've taken a new position somewhere else. And the state finds itself down qualified applicants that could have helped out delivering vital services to our constituents. In this economy with people living paycheck to paycheck, they often don't have time to wait weeks and weeks for an employer to get back to them, and it's causing us to lose qualified applicants. I firmly believe we ought to study this problem to see if we can relieve state agencies and get the vital services that our constituents need in a timely fashion. So I urge you to support this bipartisan bill. And thank you. I'll take questions if you have any.
Thank you. Representative Groda has a question.
This is not a facetious question. I'm just wondering, why is it that state agencies, do they not have the flexibility to change their hiring process to become more competitive?
Representative Groda, I think that's one thing that the study committee would be looking at.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think as the previous person testified, I don't really know the answer to that, but that would be the purpose of the committee, is to get to the bottom of what is impacting.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you, Representative Kaplan.
Thank you.
Representative Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to the committee for hearing my testimony. I think anytime the chair of the Labor Committee and the ranking member of the Labor Committee can testify in the same bill, both in support, it emphasizes the fact that we are indeed looking at a bipartisan issue here. I don't think there's anything partisan about the state needing to hire qualified, quality individuals and get them on board as quickly as possible. It seems like that's just something that benefits the state and all of the departments in general. I myself don't know why there's a delay like this. I know it's not unique to New Hampshire. One of our representative colleagues' son just got hired into one of the departments in New Jersey, and I think it's taken 6 months for him to actually get on board. So it happens in other states as well, but I'd like to see New Hampshire be better than other states. And if there are ways that we can streamline the process, get people on board quicker, and get the best candidates before they go somewhere else, I think that's a good thing. And I don't think we know the answer to exactly why this is an issue. So this study committee can very much provide answers to that. Whether we need new legislation or not is unknown. It may be that the departments can simply get some guidance from the study committee as to how to go about streamlining their hiring process. So with that, I won't repeat what's been said earlier. Thank you.
Thank you. Will you take questions?
Yes.
Representative Fellows.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but you said you were on the Labor Committee, so I thought maybe you'd have some insight in this direction. Would you agree that the process for a private company to hire an individual is fundamentally different from a government entity, which could be, you know, a school district or a town or the state, because the private company has the ability to just like say, I want somebody right away, so I'm going to just take the first person who, you know, is well qualified that comes through the door. But the government entity has to deal with all kinds of issues like fairness in terms of that everybody gets a chance to apply for that job, and concerns about that a person doesn't get the job just because, you know, their friend works in that department and they hear about it, so it's only open in the, you know, so if you get in quick, you can get hired in a week. But
And your question, Representative Fellows?
yeah, about the difference. You know, I haven't heard anybody say that they understand that this public entity has different responsibilities in terms of hiring.
I think that's probably true to some extent, which I think is why we need the study committee to streamline our process as much as possible so that we can speed it up while still getting quality candidates, doing background checks and everything that's needed for a particular position, but trying to compete with the private sector that's able to move quickly. I think you're right, but we need to do better.
Any other questions from the committee? Okay, seeing none, thank you, Representative. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on House Bill 1510?
Do we have anybody from the Division of Personnel here? No?
It doesn't look like it. Oh, excuse me. Would you care to step up, introduce yourself, and perhaps answer some questions? Obviously, the Division of Personnel is deeply involved in the hiring process.
Good afternoon. My name is Carolyn Russell. I'm Senior Operational Analyst with the Department of Administrative Services. I've been embedded in the Division of Personnel for 2.5 years, working with them on their modernization efforts and efforts to improve their processes and programs. Am I not close enough?
Close to the mic for it to
Very
work
close
properly.
to the mic. Do you want me to reintroduce myself? Carolyn Russell. I'm a Senior Operational Analyst with the Department of Administrative Services, and I've been embedded within the Division of Personnel for 2.5 years, working with them on their modernization efforts and streamlining of their processes and procedures.
Thank you. Do you have anything to say about this study committee or the state agency hiring process that will enlighten us?
It is an issue that the Division of Personnel is working on actively because we recognize the need for streamlined processes for recruitment and hiring. We have been training state HR professionals on procedures and hiring managers on procedures for hiring to try and facilitate and expedite those procedures. One of the challenges we have in the state is the time that folks have available because of the staffing issues. We currently have 19% vacancy rate, and we are competing in the labor market where it is necessary to act quickly on
Excuse me, you said
applications.
19%?
Yes, we currently have a vacancy rate of 19% statewide. Matter of fact, I calculated that this morning.
Thank you. Questions, Representative Lakis?
I think my question, thank you. I think my questions have just been answered. The 19% is across all departments, the whole state?
Across statewide for classified full-time employees.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Shea.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Taking the role of Representative Schmidt, if this study goes forward, would your department welcome the opportunity to work with them?
Absolutely, the division would be providing, I would imagine, provide much of the information required for the committee.
Any other questions? Representative Fellows?
So if you've been working on this for a while, can you, I mean, I understand that the vacancy rate in terms of well, some of them are obviously HR positions. I understand that, but I think even if you were fully staffed, it would seem like a slow operation. Have you identified any changes other than training that might help with the situation, that might make it faster?
One of the proposals the department put forward recently for use of some of the recovery funds from the federal monies is actually to hire 3 dedicated hiring managers who will sit in the Division of Personnel, who will be focused exclusively on hiring for critical need positions where we actually have higher than the average vacancy rate. We have vacancy rates up in 20 and 30% in some areas of our state government. And having dedicated hiring managers is one of the solutions we're going to be exploring to see if, because right now most of our hiring managers in the state are also managers of programs and operations. They're not fully dedicated to hiring. And so in addition to trying to hire and fill positions, they're trying to manage their programs and their operations at the same time. And so.
Thank you. Are there other questions from the committee? Okay. Yes, Representative Grote.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to clarify what you just said. So you're saying that we don't have any hiring managers that are 100% dedicated to hiring. They have other other job requirements as well.
Most of our hiring managers across the state have other job functions and responsibilities. There are some human resource staff in some of the larger agencies who are dedicated to supporting recruitment, but that is not the normal situation.
Thank you.
Representative Fellows?
So maybe I'm misunderstanding it. It almost sounds like you're saying that the person who is hiring somebody that they are going to supervise is holding up the process because they're too busy?
Sometimes that is the case. Because it falls to them, the prior process in the state is that a job is posted, applicants apply, jobs are posted internally for 5 days. We have to review our internal applicants before we can open our job to external candidates. The HR individuals will review those applicants and determine who certifies for the job. Those applicants are then passed on to the hiring manager for review. The hiring manager then must review the applicants and determine if they wish to interview any of those applicants, proceed to schedule interviews, and proceed through that process. That's the normal process that we currently follow.
Thank you very much for that information, and I am glad to hear that you will be supporting the study committee if it is created.
Of course.
Because obviously your knowledge is going to be necessary.
Thank you very much.
Any other, does anyone else wish to testify on House Bill 1510? Could you give us a pink card with your data on it? Thank you. All right. So, anyone else wish to testify on House Bill 1510? All right, seeing none, thank you. I'm going to close the hearing on 1510.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
if I may have just a few moments, I have a get well card for our colleague Representative Schmidt, which I will circulate. Thank you.
Thank you. We're actually starting the hearing on House Bill 1395. I don't have any cards from anybody, so I presume nobody wants to testify for it. That happens not to be the case. Thank you. Representative Turcott, could you introduce the bill and tell us about it?
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Representative Len Turcott. I represent Stratford County District 4. I sit on the Labor Committee, Finance Committee, Special Committee on Redistricting, and Senior Advisor in the House Majority Office. I hadn't come to introduce it, but I will put it in on behalf of Representative Huff, who is the prime sponsor. Today, I am here on behalf of the House Majority Office to give our support of improved accountability in the rulemaking process. We are in favor of reforming this process and the general concept of the bill, but possibly we believe there are some improvements or other change we would like to be considered. Rulemaking is our delegation of legislative authority to the executive. This bill requires formal, explicit approvals for rules rather than review by a committee and assumed approval, with the legislative disapproval only on an exception basis. We have all seen that the legislator no longer really has control on many occasions of the rulemaking process, and we know that the rules have the same impact on individuals and businesses as laws do. On a global basis, the intent is to restore the legislative authority on policy procedure matters affecting the people of New Hampshire. Agencies are occasionally writing rules that clearly go beyond the scope and intent of the legislator writing the bill and the legislative body passing it. Overall, we believe it's time to amend RSA 541A to ensure that unelected government employees are not policymakers and no longer have the ability to effectively create law through rules. Some ideas the House Majority Office would like to see discussed and considered. JALCAR should be empowered with the authority of no means no, meaning that rules shall not move forward at the outset prior to the express affirmative vote of the committee. We believe providing JALCAR with the authority to compel responses from agencies in a timely manner. This is another item suggested by members of the House Majority Office. We'd also like to see improving public and business input on proposed rulemaking before the vote. And we'd also like the possibility of having the policy committee chairs, vice chairs, sponsor specifically involved with the proposed rule prior to the vote by JALCAR. Finally, having just come from the Speaker's office, like I said, I'm here representing the House Majority Office, but the other side of House leadership, we believe that it would be to the benefit if a subcommittee could be formed on this bill, so the bill itself could be utilized as a vehicle for other needed improvements that other people in leadership have relayed to me. With that, I'm not here to take questions. This is not my wheelhouse. If it's a simple question, I guess I could take it. Other than that, I'll conclude my testimony.
Thank you, Representative Turcott. Representative Lacus has a question. Hope it's simple enough.
Yeah, I think it is. If you could just email a copy of what you read there to the committee, appreciate it.
I will be happy to do that.
Thank you.
All right. Other questions? Representative Schuett?
Thank you, Madam Chair. One of the issues that you particularly raised, or the Majority Office raised, was the amount of time that it takes for rules to come into effect. And I agree that in some instances it is quite lengthy. I'm serving on JALCAR myself. However, some of these things that you're talking about instituting seems like it could even possibly lengthen the amount of time that it would take.
Once again, this is not my wheelhouse, Representative Schuett. These were talking points that we came up within the House Majority Office. There are other individuals in House leadership much more well-versed in this than I am. I apologize.
Okay. Other questions? Seeing none, thank you, Representative Turcott.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on House Bill 1395? All right, seeing none, I think this will go to the SciTech Subcommittee on Rules. And I will close the public hearing on House Bill 1395. that concludes our planned business for the day. Does someone have a motion on House Bill 1274, the study of solid waste? I guess nobody thinks it's easy enough. All right, thank you all. Oh, is that?
Please don't leave before you can sign Peter's card.
Yes. Peter's out of the hospital, thank goodness, but
Well, he's in rehab.
but we won't see him for a bit, I imagine.
Right.
Okay. See you all on tomorrow.